Hey, everybody, welcome back to the wrong end of the snake question and answer period. Cosmo has decided to stay with us for a little bit longer, and we sure are happy about that. Thanks for the extra time. Tater, I know that you were watching during the program. There was a bunch of people asking questions. Why don't you tell us a couple of those?
Excellent. So Fred D, I don't want to butcher his last name, so I'll call him Fred D. He had a question, and he said, "How many arena shows did you have to remove the scoreboard because of the weight of the PA lighting system? I saw Kiss at the Forum in LA in 1976 or 77, and it was the only time I'd ever seen the scoreboard removed in a venue like that. The stage came out over the audience at some point in the show. The lighting and pyro were unmatched to anything I've seen to that point in my life. The band live did not sound anything like their highly produced albums." But then he puts "loved it. Fleetwood Mac was the same. I already know how the album sounded. Seeing a band live is always a treat to hear something new and usually better than the album." Wow. Thanks, Fred. That's a great thing. I guess you're definitely a live guy. So we'll ask Cosmo, yeah, how have you ever had to remove scoreboards and weights? And tell us maybe also your designs, how you work around stuff like the scoreboard and making sure you don't have a lighting truss over where the monitor guy's got to set up, because I know what that's like, and all those other aspects of not just the scoreboard, but other departments having to wait on the lighting to go up and that kind of stuff. And do your designs always have that thought in there?
Well, I mean, of course, you always have to. You always have to think. I mean, whenever I do a design, I do take that into consideration. I mean, obviously, my whole thing is speed. I want to get it up fast. Especially for you guys. Everybody's got to work, and I hate when they say we're waiting on lighting. And as far as it's funny. Some stuff you design around the fact there's a scoreboard there. I mean, for instance, if you have a long truss coming out straight to over the audience, you can adjust it. You can cut it down for the scoreboard. There are sometimes there's weight issues. I mean, in today's time, most buildings can take almost any weight. But it's funny. I like buildings like, do you remember the old what is it, the Cap Center?
I was going to say, not the Cap Center, flying the PA at the same time.
Yeah,
yes, one side
exactly. And then the snow load, if there's snow on the roof, it adds weight. You've got to take that into consideration. So yeah, there's lots of consideration, and that's why when you do a lighting rig, you think of an A rig, a B rig, and a C rig. You come up with different plans in the beginning, just so if you're going to have to cut it down, you don't have to think about it. You just say, okay, we're going to do this. And with a really good production manager, you know well in advance when you're going to have to move something.
And how far in advance are you given, just in general, because I'm sure sometimes you're given none and other times you're given plenty of time. I mean, I don't know if AC/DC is even thinking of going out now. I don't know what's happened with COVID, but are you already, or even on the last tour, are you already thinking about your next design?
Yes and no. I mean, I'm not, I mean, sometimes I'll just do a design, but I don't really like designing lights until I know more about the album and you know what I mean? I kind of like, it's like deciding what I'm going to have for dinner tonight as opposed to what I'm going to have for dinner in 2 weeks.
Okay.
I prefer knowledge of like stuff.
Talk to that a little bit, because we didn't really, on the main episode, we didn't talk much about your design. Like, what's your process there working with these bands? Do you have interaction with management, with band members? And do you bring them something, or do they come to you? Like, what's generally how that works as a design guy?
Well, generally, I mean, there are some bands that they want to have input and stuff like that. Like Sully from Godsmack, he's a lighting guy himself, and he wants a piece of everything. He wants to know about it, and that's fine. I prefer I like AC/DC. I mean, they're obviously very concerned about production and lighting, and they want a good show, but they're paying me so they don't have to think about it.
That's right.
Correct. I mean, when we start like an AC/DC tour, Patrick Woodruff is the overall designer, but we get together and there's a concept. And sometimes the band has things they want. Sometimes me and Patrick come up with things, and then we kind of have a round table and come up with a concept. and elaborate on it from there, and the band kind of just, they go do their own thing because they're concerned with the album and other things. Like I said, they're great because they listen to the concept, they put in their 2 cents of what they think, and then they let us do our work, and I've been with them for so long now that I just go in and program. I mean, it's just a matter of making the looks that I like, and the band love it. They trust me. That's my kind of preference of band. I mean, Aerosmith, Steven Tyler he's a lighting guy and everything, but he lets me do my thing as well. But when I as I said, I prefer just being able to use my own artistic license and come up with stuff that impresses the band. But I like input as well, especially the little things, when they come up with an idea.
When you're talking about a band with this long-term relationship, that you've had with them, is it hard to come up with new ideas? Like, you're feeling like, oh man, I've done 8 tours with this band and I've had to come up with 8 designs. Do you find it more difficult to work for a band that you've worked with, for a long period of time?
No, not really. I mean, I design, I do similar things. I mean, the thing is that the thing with AC/DC particularly is they don't like change in a sense. You know what I mean? They're of course every album is different, but it's still AC/DC. I mean, you can tell an AC/DC album. So they're that way all the way around. They like that consistency. So they don't mind different designs. I mean, that's the beauty about a lighting design is you can move stuff around. You can make it. I can make it look like anything I want as long as it looks big, and as long as I can light the stage and it rocks.
And incorporate the bell.
Yeah, exactly. As long as the bell is there. As long as I have audience lights.
Yeah.
How much does that thing weigh, Cosmo?
Well, the original bell weighs I think 3,000 pounds, 3,200 pounds or something. Wow. I mean, it's over a ton, so it creates a problem. But we haven't used that in a few tours. We have a much bigger fiberglass bell that we've used. And what I do, and this is one thing most people don't know, that the letters on the bell I paint different colors every tour. I change the colors on it. So
yeah, I'm sure you have some special things you do on certain songs. Blinders come on, and these crowds that have been with them for as long as their career's been around, probably are used to some of the things you do on those songs, and they want that consistency too.
Well,
right?
Exactly. That's the whole thing. They expect it. It's like I use the same colors on most of the same songs because people say I saw AC/DC 30 years ago, and it's not the same show, but it has the similarities, and that's what they love.
Because that's what they're coming to see. Correct.
Yes.
Now I'm going to get away from the design element a little bit, but stay in the work ethic. We had some questions like, crew guys, are you picking your crew? Do crews? I think crews pick you and want to work with you. But let's get the real story. And crew chiefs and all that stuff. How do you go about getting them, asking for them, and stuff like that? Especially on an AC/DC, because you're gonna have quite a few lighting guys on that.
Yeah, we usually have about a dozen lighting guys on AC/DC. Well, I mean, first of all, I don't want to handpick myself every single crew member. I like certain crews because I know them, certain crew members, and I like them. I also, as you know, Opie is our production manager, and I want Opie to pick people, because he's going to deal with them in a sense more than me. And we'll come and we'll say this one person, and he'll say, do you want, and I'm like, sure, and then I'll put certain people up for it in different crew positions, but I like to, and plus I like the lighting company to put in a couple of newer people, or give them a chance. And like you said, a lot of people. I mean, I'm sure people do want to work with me, but there's guys that want, guys and gals that want to work for AC/DC. So I'm not that critical as long as they're good, but I am critical if they suck. My whole thing is as I said, with me, it's a work ethic, and I'm trying to think of the term that I use. I want people to have a sense of urgency when they work on my crew. And I don't mean, panic urgency. I mean, get it done. You know what I mean?
Tonight,
Whatever it takes to get it done, we'll get this done. And I've always said that, because I always had that, and I still do this. You got to work with a sense of urgency, that you're doing something important. That's key to me.
And I would think that from the I don't know the lowest person on the lighting crew, the feeder person, or I don't know, the truss putter together, whatever that job is called, they can't pull the wool over your eyes because you've done that job.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
if you're up on stage looking at something, nobody's fooling you. That you know,
Nope.
and they know what's going on. So I can imagine, and I'm sure you have a look every now and then to keep an eyeball on what's going on.
Well, I'm fortunate that, I mean, I've always had good crews, you know, and I mean, that's the thing when you work with some of the biggest bands, as you know, they generally put the best people on it, you know?
Yeah.
But I like,
especially bands
go
you're
ahead.
working for. Yeah.
I like what you said
especially the bands
about
he's
giving. I like what you said about giving kids a chance. I
Yeah.
always make it a point when I'm, talking to any vendor about having a crew. I want a couple of the young guys, that are go-getters and, want to come out there and learn, how a really large tour works. So it's great
Yeah.
to hear that you're doing that.
Yeah.
Oh, 100%. And, I'm also, adamant about guys on the crew whenever there's an opening act that needs an LD. I mean, typically you ask the crew chief, but I, I mean, the pecking orders, I ask the crew chief, but I also find if there's anybody on the crew that's really keen to do it, it's like, I'd love to be an LD, because I've had guys that on the crew that they don't want to be an LD, they're happy being a lighting guy, but I've had guys that want to be an LD, and it's like, I'll put them in a position and I'll help them, and I'll walk into the dressing room of the opening act and introduce myself if I don't already know them. And so it's important, once again, to help those people get an opportunity.
Yeah, and I see now the crew chief position in audio and in lighting. What I see going on, they're really busy now. I mean, they're all day busy and
Yeah.
meetings and next gig planning and stuff like
Yeah.
that. So sometimes those crew chiefs don't have time to get in there, and they'll put somebody in there to do the lights for the opening act. And what better if the opening acts don't have an LD? What better to have someone on the crew that knows that rig and knows that the LD wants them to succeed, and giving them maybe a couple more lights or the help and time that they need to make their show even look better.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, yeah, agreed. I mean, I mean, look at me. I was fortunate that, Sean Richardson and Patrick Woodruff gave me the opportunity I didn't run the opening act then, but I ran the Stones, but I mean, I ran a band called Steel Pulse when I was out with INXS, and, it was opportunities that obviously led to my career now. So thankfully I had people that gave me that opportunity, and I want to do the same.
You don't have to mention any company names or anything, but do you work with only one lighting company? Does work spread around, or how is that happening?
Well, I mean, work spreads around. I mean, it also depends on the size of the tour. It depends on the band. There's a relationship that bands have, like AC/DC. It's really strange. I mean, AC/DC had a relationship with LSD for many, many years.
Mm-hmm.
But then things changed. Fourth Phase and PRG. And I think in 2008, we changed from them to Upstaging. And I've had a relationship with John Hostin for a very long time. But, now with AC/DC, it's a relationship with Upstaging, So, as you know, it's not that cut and dried. You just don't pick the lighting company or the sound company. You still have to do a bidding process, but you know who you want. And that relationship is important, It's, but it's become a small world now. It's, we know everybody from all the companies,
And it's important for younger people is to not really make, not say enemies, but just be open and friendly to all the companies, because you never know when you're going to work with them, when you need them, their services.
Exactly.
You just never know. So it's good to have a positive relationship with all of them, because, man, it's a small business and people move around and companies buy each other. I mean, you mentioned LSD, and I like to say LSD stands for Light and Sound Design before everybody takes it the wrong way. But we all know how many times that changed hands or companies or names or all that kind of stuff throughout the years. So it's just to the younger kids, just keep open mind to all these places, even if you don't like them or favor the gear they have. Man, you just never, if you're going to be in this business a while, you just never know.
Well, exactly. And there's no reason not to be nice, number one. And there's number two, there's no reason not to be honest. Say, well, I prefer this company because I like the crew guys better. Their equipment's nicer. At least give some feedback to the other
to help
company
them grow.
using them.
through me purchasing equipment over the years, I say that to a lot of service companies. You know, I don't like this about it. I don't like this. Or if I get a product from them and it's this, this, and this, and you give them that feedback, and most of them take it pretty good. But I just try to treat them like I want my company treated. If there's something wrong with what I'm doing, I want to know about it so I can fix it. I don't want to keep making that mistake, right? So, great advice. Thank you.
I mean, you know, the old adage of treat others how you want to be treated is true. You know, words hurt people. And I don't think that, you know, people realize that. And so if you're walking around in any situation, especially how small this business is, I'm sure we all know very talented people that are not working because they're dicks. You know what I mean? Like, they could be very talented at being a lighting guy or being an audio guy, but if you can't get along with people, if you outside of the gig, then nobody wants you around. So you don't get a job. So it's important.
And that, you know, I'll thank Cosmo. It's like every time I do a tour with him, or even we see on a festival, or, you know, award show or whatever we see at, it's always so good to see, because, you know, Cosmo's got a great attitude, a positive attitude. He's not just shaking your hand and giving you a hug. Hey, nice to see you. He means it. That's right. And that makes a big difference. Sometimes even when you're having a bad day, it's highly appreciated. I wish I could be more like that. I tell you that. I try to, but, you know, you're definitely the benchmark standard for good attitude and working with people. And I know me alone, I appreciate that. I know a lot of other people do.
Yeah, they do, for sure.
Well, I mean, I love festivals because you get to see so many old friends, even for a brief moment. It's just fantastic. And I'll tell you a little. I mean, I do that. I'm genuinely happy to see people. Like when I see you guys, you know, when I go to a gig and I know people are there, I go and see as many people as I can, even if it's for a few seconds, because it's better than nothing. But
I know you did me a great honor, and actually, when the night that it happened, Pooch was there. We were in Paris, France. We were with the opening act, Slash, who was opening up for AC/DC on a short run of shows there.
Yep.
And I remember just getting done loading out our bit, and AC/DC just hit the stage, and I'm on the bus, and I get a text from you, come out the front house, watch this show. It's like, it's just like, just you even thinking about me while your show's just starting, I was like, man, how great is that? You know, it's so nice and so refreshing and change of pace. It was just the thought of asking me and texting me in France right when your show was starting was it blew me away. I'll always remember that.
Great. Great. Well, I wanted to make sure you need to come out.
Well, you know, it's funny how, you know, we've all three of us that are here on this have worked very hard to get to where we are. And we're kind of at this place in this business where we're doing very well. And we have to realize that there can be one moment that you interact with a younger guy or girl that may change their life. You know, you may say something or do something like what Tater was just talking about. Just one of those little things, like you being in front of house and texting, you know, that's a little thing for you, but it's a big thing for other people. And so I think it's important that you realize it and you do.
100%. I mean, I mean, I always try to, you know, a little story, you know, Rob Koenig.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
Okay. Of course you do. I mean, of course you do. Well, Rob, I was doing an AC/DC show in New Orleans, and he was with Deep Purple at the House of Blues, and it was many, many, many years ago when he was, you know, young and keen and just starting on LD. And I went to that show, and because I love Deep Purple, and I met Rob, and you know, he was, you know, I could tell he was kind of odd to meet me because I was AC/DC's LD, and you know, as a House of Blues in New Orleans, you know, the little shitty lighting rig, but it was all right, and he rocked it. I mean, you could tell then he had that feel, and the show looked great, and the whole way he ran the show, and I told him after the show, you know, shook his hands, a great show, and I meant it, you know, and stuff like that. And fast forward years later, he tells me how much what I said meant to him, and how much it gave confidence it gave him, you know, and you know, look at him now. I mean, hell, he took over for me on Aerosmith. So he still tells that story, and it makes me feel so good. And all I did was I was being honest, told him what a great show it was. I didn't realize what an impact it had.
We just saw Rob we saw him at NAMM, right?
Yeah,
Yeah,
we
I'm
saw
in a
him
park. Ran into him in a parking lot. He was out in a parking lot. We were walking through a parking lot, and there he was. So yeah, right
Yeah.
before everything came crashing down, a little
Yeah.
bit before. So yeah, awesome, Cosmo. So great to have you. Thanks for staying around for the questions and answers. Always good to see you. Hope we can see you sooner than
I
later.
hope to give you both a hug sooner than later.
Oh
Yep.
man,
Yeah,
yeah, for
appreciate
real. We hope we see you in person real soon. Thanks for coming, man. We appreciate
All
you.
right. No problem, guys. Take care of yourself. Thank you.
Thank you.